Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Now, the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSayingNoGWJS for article and video updates. Don't forget us in your ears on Spotify at Just Saying Football. We are now in week 9, and we have a few teams on a bye that's going to include the Cleveland Browns, New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So get into your fantasy lineups once again. Make sure those are set. Both of our teams coming off of some losses. Mine a little bit more embarrassing than yours, but you had some injuries and some bad calls. How are we feeling going into week 9?
Yeah, man. Week 9, we got a bunch of teams on bye right now. We got Tampa Bay, Eagles, Jets, like you said, Browns. That's going to be big for a lot of fantasy lineups. Big week here. We're at the midway point. We got the trade deadline next week. Things are getting real right now, and some of these teams, they're really in no man's land. You got the Jets, the Saints, the Titans, all with one win halfway through the season. But man, the Colts, we'll get into them eventually. They're 7-1, top of the league. Nobody knew. Sean's boy JT absolutely. If they gave MVP running back, running backs MVP, I mean, he'd be getting it, no doubt, right?
I think he has to be the favorite right now, honestly. I'd be shocked if he doesn't win it. That's what, 4 or 3?
4 games with 3.
4? That's insane, okay? That is so many touchdowns. But let's jump into some games, because we have a Thursday night football match when the Baltimore Ravens make their way to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Ravens are favored in this one, -7.5 with an over-under here of 50.5. Lamar Jackson is back for this one. They sat him last week at the last moment. Ended up paying off for them and still got the win for Baltimore. I'm locking them in on this one. I don't like what's going on. Anything Miami, don't trust anything. I do believe that there's going to be a fire sale, especially if they lose this weekend. And we were just talking about it off camera. Just a few years ago, they dominated the Dolphins on the road. We saw them go off. And we were also talking about how there's a chance here that the Ravens can still win the AFC North. Last week, the Browns lost, the Bengals lost, and the Steelers lost. They got to win. They're only 1 game behind the Bengals and 2 games behind the Steelers right now. This is still pretty wide open, the AFC North.
Yeah, and I'm going to take them as well. They got an easier schedule going forward. But what's easier than getting Miami on a short week when Miami's definitely feeling good after that win against Atlanta. Tua wakes up with an illness, all of a sudden just goes off. But that's what you get when you play the Falcons. You could either get destroyed or destroy them. That's not going to be the case with the Ravens this week. We kind of saw Derrick Henry getting it right last week. Shout out to Snoop Huntley. I don't know why they were starting Cooper Rush over Snoop Huntley this whole time, but I ain't going to question the Harbaugh method out there. I'm taking Baltimore super easy, 7.5. If Lamar's playing 2 passing touchdowns, always, feel free to start him in fantasy, obviously.
Yep, absolutely. All right, move this into some Sunday games. Chicago Bears making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Chicago's taking this one -2.5 and over under here at 48.5. Joe Flacco's giving the Bengals some juice. Is that going to be enough, though, to beat the Bears?
I don't know, man. The Bears, shockingly, they wound up being a little bit better than you'd think last week. It's just nuts right now when you're thinking about Ben Johnson, how bipolar this offense can be. I think they get it right this week against Cincinnati on the road. That's 2 road teams for me already, but it seems like that's going to be a big trend this week, you think?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think the problem is just the Bengals defense. That's what everyone's worried about. But I think Caleb Williams, you got to get this back on track. What's going on? Maybe the expectations were too high for Ben Johnson in year 1. We forget it's a whole team, but this Bears team has been a little lackluster at times. That being said, I am going to go with them. They should beat the Bengals. There's no reason why they can't. We saw the Lions do it, the Bears do, or the Packers do it, and the Vikings do it earlier this year in dominating fashion. So I expect them to get this win, open up this playbook a little bit. But I do, Jamar Chase, your fantasy owner, just keep enjoying your total.
Yeah, you said it. The defense for Cincinnati's a problem, but the O-line for Cincinnati is even more of a problem. I think the Bears, they can, low-key edge it out in some defensive games sometimes. So I feel like that's where we're both going with it.
Yep. All right, let's keep this moving along. So we have my Minnesota Vikings making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are favored this by -8.5 and over-under here of 47.5. Now, the big news is that Carson Wentz is out for the year. Supposedly he tore his left shoulder, or tore his labrum in his left shoulder. The team might have been aware of this, might have not been aware of this. I guess he played through it for 2.5 games. Either way, this does not look good for the Vikings. Does not sound great for them. Not what you want to hear. Does not necessarily embody the culture they've been building with KOC in the building and the former coach of the year. What are your thoughts going into this one? I'm worried. I feel like it's going to be a Jahmyr Gibbs day because our run defense isn't the best. And Amon-Ra always seems to tear us apart.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Lions definitely, you're kind of starting to feel them click a little bit more. I mean, it's just, when you see what Gibbs was able to do last week, pretty insane, just a 2-touchdown game, bunch of, rippers. And I think, they've gotten their time to kind of rest. They got a division opponent at home. The 8.5 always kind of scares me. I would just kind of take the over in this. I think that the Lions are just capable of putting up ridiculous amounts of points whenever they want to. So I really think that, at the end of the day, J.J. McCarthy is going to have kind of his hands full with Aiden Hutchinson here. I like what the Vikings have been doing, but it's just unfortunate that they've kind of had to switch quarterbacks when they kind of expected J.J. obviously to start the whole season.
Yeah, the injuries to the offensive line, the constant shifting, you can just see the pressure rate. They got all these offensive linemen to help out. It just hasn't been the same. They haven't been able to play fully healthy this season. That's not going to help you when the team's getting injured all the time. JJ is going to be back for this one, so let's see if they can get it going. Let's see if he's able to be fully healthy and have an understanding for this team. Detroit's won the last 5 matchups against the Vikings, and they've covered this spread at least in 3 of the last 5. So I would definitely take this 8.5 spread against the Vikings, and I am going to lock in the Lions. I do think this is one of those games that's going to be a blowout. Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw should be fully healthy for this one, and they've had the mini bye because they played Thursday Night Football last week.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps them. But Lions coming off the bye, they're getting fully healthy now. Brian Branch, obviously, coming back from his suspension with a chip on his shoulder he came out with. That's never what you want to do going into a game like this. So let's keep this moving along because we have another blowout game with the Carolina Panthers make their way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Green Bay is favored in this one by a whopping 12.5 with an over-under here of 45.5. And I'm going to lock them in, and I'll take that spread. Andy Dalton was the problem with that Panthers team last week, and Micah Parsons has been absolutely electric so far. We saw him go through 3 guys to get a sack on Sunday Night Football against the Steelers. I'm going to lock them in. I just don't think – I honestly think that the performance by Andy Dalton showed that Bryce Young is definitely the better option that they have at the very least.
Yeah, man. We've never been a huge fan of Andy Dalton here on this show, but you're definitely not a bigger fan of him this week after he's scrambling and fumbling all over himself the other day. Obviously a huge beat down there for them, against the Bills. And, when you're giving up 40 points and, you can't even score more than 10, it's unfortunate. But shout out Rico Dowell still. I think he could have a performance. But right now, I mean, the Packers, the way they're playing with Tucker Kraft, he's looking like a top 5 tight end this year, Sean. It's crazy to see that progression that he's made, especially last week. We had underwhelming results from tight ends, and this guy had like 33 fantasy points. So as long as Jordan Love plays the way he did last week, throwing 29 for 37 and 3 touchdowns, no picks, you got Tucker Kraft there at home. There's no way they can't cover this spread, in my opinion. I agree with you.
I'd be surprised if they couldn't cover it at all. And, it's been kind of insane with Tucker Kraft. I couldn't believe how incredible he's been. I was a big fan of him just a few years ago, but it's just sort of funny because they got Luke Musgrave a few years ago in the draft, and all of a sudden Tucker Kraft was like, nah, I ain't him, and it's been shown. Moving this right along, we have the Los Angeles Chargers making their way to Tennessee to take on the Titans. Chargers are favored this one by -10 with the over-under here of 43.5, locking in the Chargers. Ladarius Sneed is going to be on IR. They've already traded 2 of their cornerbacks, including Roger McCreary, to the Los Angeles Rams. We'll get into that in a little bit, but that really just boosted a Rams defense that's already solid and a team that's already solid. I think it's a fire sale for the Titans. It's everybody but Cam Ward. They're totally changing the team again. They fired their head coach. You know that they're going to be looking in the offseason. They're currently projected to be a top 3 pick at the moment. It's probably going to stay likely like that. Again, one more week until the trade deadline. They're going to try to get as many picks as they can. And I think that they're just trying to see what they have in Cam Ward, make sure he doesn't get injured, keep him as upright as possible. You have pieces on the offensive line, but I'm locking the Chargers.
Yeah, the Chargers, dude. I mean, the way they've been playing, it's kind of like a roulette when it comes to whether it's going to be Keenan Allen, whether it's going to be Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey. But last week it was actually Gadsden, their new tight end, and he absolutely bursted onto the scene the last few weeks. I think he has another huge game. Quentin Johnston has to have a revenge game of some sort after having no targets last week. But I'm on your wave. Titans are in the fire sale mode right now. Not too much to analyze on their part. You kind of wish Tony Pollard was in a better situation because he's playing well, but they're always behind. They can't really get the run game going. But the Chargers are looking good to me. They want to win games. They're top of the AFC West right now, and they're trying to stay ahead of Kansas City. So I'm taking LA with you on this.
Yeah, be shocked if they don't win. All right, let's keep this moving along. We have the Atlanta Falcons making their way to New England and take on the Patriots. New England's favored this by -5.5 and over-under here of 45.5. Drake May looks like the future, man. I mean, he's been playing electric. The last 3 games, he's been insane. There's MVP chatter around him. The team looks great. There's not a lot of talk about how well they've been playing right now. We haven't been talking a lot about them, but they look legit. I think that they're probably playoff contenders at this moment. And Stephon Diggs finally found the end zone, his first one of the season. They're getting going at the right time. And Atlanta, you know how Atlanta will never win games is if you don't run the ball with Bijan Robinson. If Bijan Robinson is not carrying that ball, you're not going to win games. And I'm not saying that as a fantasy owner, but genuinely, that offense was just not. I mean, you didn't have Drake London also, but Bijan getting 40 yards was just rough.
Yeah, just anybody who was riding our Falcons picks last week, we were saying how big Bijan's going to have. We were talking about possibility of Drake London and Michael Penix, and then you don't have Michael Penix or Drake London, and you basically don't have Bijan. I'm with you, Sean. I'm going with New England. 5-game win streak, low-key, given all these Jets fans and Dolphins fans out here a little bit of flashbacks. Now they're like, oh, we got 2 teams to deal with right now, top of the AFC East. I love what the Pats are doing. Drake May definitely been your guy all year. Despite not knowing who every week his number 1 receiver is, the guy's getting 250 through the air. He's getting 30 or 40 on the ground, and he's all about winning. So I like them 5.5 here at home. I think it's going to be a nice chilly game in Foxborough. The weather's going to start playing a factor. So I'll take New England, no problem at home.
Yep, I'd be a little surprised if the Patriots don't win. Falcons, I think I've said the last 3 weeks now, but inconsistent. It's riding a wave. You never know what you're going to get with them. And last week was one of the worst that you could see.
Last week was a bad wave.
It was not it. Let's see for fantasy reasons if it gets back into shape. All right, let's keep this moving along. We have the San Francisco 49ers making their way to New York to take on the Giants. San Francisco favored this by -2 with an over-under here of 48.5. Now, obviously, these are 2 very injured teams. The Giants just lost Cam Scatterbo. That's some of the biggest news. That was just a huge loss for a team that just sort of had the vibes at the moment. Just sort of was chilling. Giants fans across New York were sad. You could feel you could see Jackson's dart reactions immediately after it happened. He was just screaming and cursing. So how are you feeling going into this one?
Yeah, dude, just absolute devastation when you got a guy like that, heart and soul of the offense right now, and you got a good quarterback, and they're both playing great. Jackson obviously, is just expressing what we're all feeling. I mean, the guy obviously, loves to play the game, so you hate to see it. Any devastating injury, and just adds, just insult to injury, the fact that Malik's already hurt, and it's just tough when a team gets to this point in the season where the injuries start getting. Not everybody is San Francisco. San Francisco is out here winning games, getting McCaffrey involved, getting really whoever's involved, whoever's not injured around. And Kittle obviously scored last week. Jake Ton just scored last week. I think they're going to be running a lot through these tight ends, so they wait for their receivers to get healthy. The Giants, I think their defense can keep them in this one. However, it's going to be close, and if it comes down to a close game, I'll be taking Kyle Shanahan all day in that scenario. It's a big travel for the Niners, which worries me a little bit, but I guess that's why they're only favored by 2.5. We'll just continue to see who throughout the week comes back for San Francisco, but man, I'm bummed about the Giants. I felt really good about it, but we're going to see what Tyrone Tracy can do this week against banged up Niners defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with New York. I think that they have a little bit more to play with, a little bit more chip on their shoulder after last week, especially with the injuries. I think Jackson Dart has still shown a lot. Tyron Tracy was solid in his rookie year. There's no reason to think that he can't still carry the ball well for this team, and they're going to need him to. 49ers are injured. They didn't look great last week. I think this is a great opportunity. I want to see Dexter Lawrence get back on track. He only has half a sack. He's been dealing with a bunch of injuries this season, between like nagging knees injuries, shoulder injuries, and illnesses. So, it's not the same sexy Dexy that we've seen the last few seasons. But if he can get going, this defensive line get going. Kayvon last week, Jack was talking about it off screen, just dog mentality, getting after that ball, just bad officiating though.
You seen how good I've been not bringing up this obvious fumble, but
I had to for my guys. So I'll go with the Giants. I do think that they're playing with a little bit more juice than we've seen last few years. And again, that bad officiating changed the game. Got the first down. Philly was able to score. It just changed. It sucked the air out of the Giants. You could feel it immediately. The injury happens. All these different things. So I'm going with them this week. The fans are going to be there. Let's keep this moving along to the Indianapolis Colts making their way to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. Colts are favored this one by -3 with an over-under here of 49.5. Now, one of the things that I saw, which was crazy, is that the Steelers have the highest paid defense, and they are bottom 10 in all major defensive categories. Is there a chance for them to win this game? Because we've seen whether it's Jonathan Taylor going to kill you on the ground or Daniel Jones decide to throw 3 touchdowns. Whether some of them are going to Jonathan Taylor also. They're still going to find ways to win. The team looks great. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, dude. Daniel Jones knew it the whole time. No, I'm kidding. This guy, I'm sure you saw it, Sean, as well. There was a graphic just going around this week about the efficiency of the Colts offense right now. And it's not that they're the most efficient offense per down this season, but this entire century, since 2000, this Colts team this year is so efficient. Right now, the Steelers have been a little bit inconsistent. So I'm going to go with Indianapolis on this one. We talked about it. JT, 4 games with 3 touchdowns. Making a case for his, offensive player of the year odds, I think, are like -300 now. So he's the absolute favorite. Going to be a league winner for most people in fantasy. And, even Pittman seems like he's scoring every week. They're getting everybody involved here. Daniel's just running the offense efficiently. And I'll trust him over Rodgers this week. Obviously, big shot for the Steelers last week. But Roman Wilson, our buddy Garrett always says, Roman Wilson. And here he comes. 5 targets last week, 4 catches, got a touchdown. So Rodgers is starting to find other guys outside of DK Metcalf. So I think he can keep this game honestly close. But this seems like a weird AFC matchup. I feel like these teams don't play a lot, the Steelers and Colts.
Yeah, no, I think it is one of those weird ones that feels like it should have Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger behind the helm here. But here we are. It's okay. Don't worry about it. We don't mind. It's Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers. That sounds even weirder.
That does.
But I'm locking in the Colts. I just think that they're a more complete team. Mm-hmm. Inconsistent for the Falcons, inconsistent for the Steelers as well. We don't know what team we're going to get. They don't always play all 4 quarters. Sometimes they're there for the first half, and they're not around for the second half. And they're at home. The defense doesn't look the same. They did make a trade while we were here for Kyle Duggar. Patriots trade Kyle Duggar and a 7th rounder in exchange to Pittsburgh for a 6th rounder.
This happened right now?
Yep, this happened 12 minutes ago.
Oh, wow.
So they're trying to round out that defense. Deshaun Elliott did get injured in last week's game. That's something to monitor, so they are down to safety. But that is to help them out. Kyle Duggar's not really seen the field, but solid safety for them, but still going with the Colts in this one. Moving this right along, one of the better games of the weekend, we have the Denver Broncos making their way to Houston to take on the Texans. Denver's favoring this one by -1.5 with an over-under here of 39.5. Broncos just went off last week, and it was all because of R.J. Harvey, man. Everybody was super excited for him during the preseason, and last week showed why. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, man. Talk about a team getting everybody involved. It's like every week Denver has a new receiver outside of Courtland Sutton, just making big plays. And then last week it was one of the running backs with R.J. Harvey. You still have J.K. Dobbins get over 100 yards, and then you have R.J. Harvey get 2 touchdowns. This Broncos defense, this offense is incredibly efficient right now. Obviously, they just were able to, take it to the limit the last couple of weeks, and I think they'll be able to do that, in this. But I will say it's going to be tight. Like, I liked what the Texans were able to do last week. I think they're finally getting healthy. I like that they're getting Jaden Higgins finally involved. Dalton Schultz, like we're kind of seeing, we were talking a lot of crap about C.J. Stroud the last few weeks, and last week he kind of, saved himself a little bit there. So I want to see what he does this week. I'll be optimistic. I hate to pick against you, but I will say that the Texans, I don't know. They're losing record city right now with Indianapolis the way they are. They're not going to win this division. They got to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Texans finally got it right. We see C.J. Stroud playing great, and their defense is electric. There's no doubt about it. And I think there's a very real possibility that they can win this game. I was surprised that they beat the 49ers last week, quite honestly. But I will go with Denver. There's no patch 13 for the next 4 to 6 weeks with the pec injury, so that's something to monitor. That the Defensive Player of the Year will not be there to help them out. But I do think that they're just a slightly more rounded team than the Texans at the moment, just between the offensive line and the running back and the wide receiver core, that gives them the slight advantage on the road. And we don't like 1.5s here. And I don't like that. I'd stay away from the spread, but I will take the money line.
For the Broncos?
At the very least, for the Broncos.
Nice.
So that's at the very least. All right, moving this right along. Stinker of the week for sure. Jacksonville Jaguars making their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Jacksonville saving this one by -3 with an over-under here, 44.5. Tyler Lockett just got signed to the Raiders. That makes sense with Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. And one of the things that I noticed was that Brian Thomas Jr. supposedly is being shopped around.
Yeah.
Which is shocking because he's only in his second year and he just had a great rookie season. I would be really disappointed if the Jaguars decide to trade him, and I don't think there's any validity in those.
I hear you, but it is the Jaguars. These guys, they move on from all their good players very quickly, I feel like. Some reason they have given Trevor $55 a year, but they're like, we got to get rid of his best receiver. There's just no other solution.
Where would Brian Thomas go? See, that's the thing.
Where would he go exactly? That's a good question. Where do you think he could go?
Indiana. I'd make a move if I was Indiana.
For Indianapolis?
I mean, they're not going to because it's
in the division. Yeah.
I like a true. Not that Pittman isn't a wide receiver one, but I think Brian Thomas Jr. has that dog in him.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So I like him in Indy. I think Pittsburgh logistically, because they do need wide receivers always.
Yeah. I mean, Brian Thomas in Pittsburgh would be a great fit. Him and DK Metcalf together with Aaron Rodgers throwing would not be a bad one. Oh, maybe a little Giants in there. I like that.
I also saw Washington out there, which is one of the ones that I liked.
They don't need any more.
I know, and all this, by the way, is to say that I'm going to go Jacksonville because I do think that they have the better team, and just Geno Smith turns over the ball at an alarming rate.
I'm with you, man. I'll take Jacksonville, but that's the exact same reason. It's like, how do you trust a guy turning the ball over that much? When he does, how are you going to get your rookie running back started if you can't do anything, So
yep.
I'm with you on Jacksonville. This is definitely the stinker of the week. You said it.
Yep, 7 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, by the way, for Geno Smith. We are entering week 9. This is not what they were expecting when they signed him. Let's keep this moving along. We have the New Orleans Saints making their way to Los Angeles to take on the Rams. Rams are favoring this by -13.5 with an over-under here of 44.5. Now, if you're in the fantasy league and you need a spot start defense and you have the Rams available, you should be starting the Rams defense. If you have an opposing team playing the Saints and that team is like not the Bengals pretty much, you should
or the Dolphins?
start that defense. Yeah, or the Dolphins. Like, you should start that defense. I think you can take this spread comfortably because Puka Nacua is coming back. They're coming off of the bye. The Rams look great. We talked about a little bit ago the Tennessee Titans traded Roger McCreary, which only helps out this team. Brian Young for the Rams is second in sacks with 8, only behind your guy Brian Burns and Myles Garrett, who had a 5-sack game last year.
Who now nobody will catch in sacks.
Yeah, but they still lost. So I'm locking in the Rams. If somehow the Saints win, I'd be shocked. But we saw Tyler Styles getting the start. We saw what he did when he had to come in for relief. It wasn't any better. So
yeah, and I mean you got the Rams coming off For me, I'm taking them. With Puka, no problem right now. Devontae Adams 3 touchdowns. We got, Matthew Stafford throwing 5 touchdowns without hitting 200 yards last week. When he's playing bad teams, he's just going to have fun. I think that's an easy one for me this week, probably the easier game. I'm going to stay away from a lot of this, the spread and the over-under, just because 13.5 scares me, but, like you said, easy matchup for him.
Take it. I say take the spread. I'm feeling that. All right. Moving this in for sure would have been the game of the week. We have the Kansas City Chiefs making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Kansas City's favoring this one by -1.5. Over under here of 51.5. Now, obviously, you stay away from 1.5 spreads, so stay away from that one. But Josh Allen looks right back on track. We saw them drop a nice little 40 burger.
Yeah.
James Cook is insane. I mean, he only did all of 200 yards on 12 carries. He barely needed to do it on anything more than that. So it should be a good one out in Buffalo. But Kansas City, they're fully healthy.
Yeah, man. They are looking so good. We were watching the game last night, and you just see Kansas City back to completely taking control the way that the Bills have been doing the last few years, where they're just up. And even if they don't have a good run game, they're still just going to run every play to run the clock out, being up 3 scores. I am going to take Buffalo just because they're at home, and I feel like Kansas City just coming off a little easy of a matchup. So is Buffalo, but there's something different there. I feel like their approach this week for Buffalo, they're going to really want to play against, in front of their home fans. So they got to be feeling good about that last week. So I'll take the Bills at here, but I'm with you, man. That 3-headed dragon right now of Kelsey, Rice, and Worthy is fully back. Mahomes are running all over the place. It's going to be scary. The defense looks unbelievable. Got a turnover right out the gate yesterday. Give me the Bills in this, but it's only because I think they'll turn the ball over less. Mahomes had 2 picks on Monday night. That worried me just a little bit.
Yeah, I do think that was, everybody's going to have a bad game every once in a while. It's unusual when a guy of his caliber does. And then we saw what happens when their team puts it all together. Granted, there was a few throws by Washington and plays where you're just like, what the hell is going on? This is why you need Jaden Daniels.
Yeah.
For sure. This is why, he's the leader of that team for sure. But I'm also going to go with the Bills. It's at home. Bills always have their number in regular season.
Yeah.
When they play each other in the playoffs, that's when this game is going to get a little bit different. But Bills always in the playoffs. They seem to play really well against Kansas City. Pat Mahomes always struggles a little bit more. I would take, and maybe I'll drop in the Discord again as well on Sundays, so keep your eye out there. But I would take Patrick Mahomes' interception, at least one, in this game. I do think that because of those struggles, I think it'll be a much cleaner game. Might be like a tip drill kind of interception, but I do think there will be an interception by him. But I'm going to lock in Buffalo. Right? I'm going to lock him in Buffalo for this one. All right. Move us in Sunday Night Football. Seattle Seahawks make their way to Washington to take on the Commanders. Seahawks favored in this one -3 with an over-under here of 45.5. Seahawks had the bye last week, so if you're a JSN fantasy owner, don't worry, he's back. He can save your fantasy team easily. Don't worry, everybody. You can all breathe easily. We're both one of those guys in our respective leagues. But for me, I'm going Seattle just right off the bat. It's not looking like Jaden Daniels is going to be in there for Week 9. Also, at the moment, from what I'm seeing, this is recorded on Tuesday. Keep that in mind. They just played Monday. So when I'm saying this is on a Tuesday. A lot can happen between today's injury report and Thursday's injury report. So just keep this in mind. But no Jaden Daniels, I really don't like it. We saw what they did last week. And Seattle's defense has been electric. They look like the Legion of Boom, but better, and their offense has just been incredible. So I'm comfortably taking Seattle on this one.
I like that. Yeah, I'm taking Seattle as well. JSN, like you said, great matchup for him. Right now, Commanders 29th ranked passing defense, so the third worst in the league, averaging about 244. That's huge for Sam Darnold, who's been airing it out. And even with the bye week for Seattle, who's leading the league right now in passing is in receiving yards? It's JSN. He has 819 through 7 games, and that's just impressive stuff to me. Easy pick here. I think the running backs dominate. I think it's going to be a big Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker game. Hopefully they give Kenneth Walker a touchdown this week because, they didn't give it to one on his birthday last week in prime time. They gave Charbonnet 2, but, they're definitely using both of those guys really well right now, and I love the Seattle Seahawks this week.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Monday Night Football, Arizona Cardinals making their way to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. Dallas favored this by -2.5 with an over-under here of 54. Dallas last week, that defense was missing Micah Parsons because they had no answer for R.J. Harvey. This week they get a much easier Cardinals team. Kyler Murray is expected to be back in this one. And we've seen George Pickens just light it up this year, but a lot of reports are that there have been zero contract talks.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe there's a chance that Pickens is on the move again in the offseason.
It could be a one-year audition. We've seen it before with guys like that. Just they don't get the late round guys. They don't get their deal, and then all of a sudden they go get paid. Because they have a season like this. He's leading the team because of CeeDee's injury. In every category right now, so he's got that. One thing I love for the Cardinals here, I'm taking Dallas because they're at home in prime time. I think there's always big upside with that offense. But both teams with a losing record. Why Kansas City and Buffalo isn't the Monday night on this week, I have no idea. But Pickens right now, 43 catches, 600 yards, 6 touchdowns. But Kyler also, man, 3-0 in all time against Dallas in the last couple of years playing them. So definitely, Cardinals live bet if it's sneaky and you're feeling it. But Trey McBride touchdown this week. I love that's the play for me on Monday night. He didn't get to participate in National Tight End Day last week as a top 3 tight end in the whole league. So I love his touchdown this week, and maybe a little Cardinals live bet, but I'm taking Dallas.
I do potentially like a Cardinals live bet, but I'm also going to take Dallas. I think that Dak Prescott's having a solid year. Last week wasn't the best, but when he locks in, it's great. This is a great duo when you have CD and George Pickens. If they can fix this defense maybe in the next year, draft a little bit better, then we can start talking. I remember the days of Taco Charlton.
They'll have the pick. They'll have the picks.
So they'll have 2 picks. And 4 first-rounders over the next 2 years. So let's see if they're able to cook up something. Hopefully hopefully they don't. We don't really like Dallas here in New York. But for the sake of objective football, we hope that they do. That being said, I just think that they have the weapons to overpower Arizona. And we're still not seeing, it feels like Arizona first 4 weeks, Arizona, so much fun. And then after that, it's
it's you get why Cardinals fans are always so miserable.
That's why the fantasy footballs are the way that they are. And I'm
true.
I totally get that now. Very similar to Vikings fans. But we're locking the Cowboys in here. That's all the time that we have. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Week 9, season's just flying by. It always does. It never feels slow. And it's only Tuesday, and I'm like, man, why aren't all my stuff loading in for fantasy? And that's how you know it feels too fast and too slow at the same time.
Yeah, man, and we're halfway through. Especially once that trade deadline hits next week when we're doing the show, we're gonna start being in our field. So, thank you guys always for watching Just Saying Football. Appreciate it. Every week we are gonna be here till the end of the season, giving you all the picks. Just Saying Football on YouTube, on Spotify. Make sure to get us in your ears. Check us out. All of our picks on Discord. Under Just Saying Football and Just Saying with no G, WJS on Instagram for all your updates. Thank you guys for checking us out. Week 9